There is a concept in Louis Tracy's novel, The Silent Barrier, that serves as the heartbeat of the entire story. It isn't just a physical thing, though the mountains certainly play a role. It is the idea of a boundary, the invisible, unyielding line between what humans intend to do and what the universe, or nature, or even morality allows them to do. It is the war between a secret and the truth, between social standing and actual character, and between the controlled environment of a drawing room and the chaotic, lethal reality of a mountain peak. To understand how this barrier works, we have to start in the structured, somewhat suffocating social circles of London. We meet Charles K. Spencer, a wealthy American mining engineer. He is observant, perhaps a bit detached, a man who spends his life studying the layers of the earth to find what lies beneath. This habit of looking beneath the surface seems to define him. He becomes captivated by Helen Wynton, a journalist who is working hard but struggling financially. There is no grand, sweeping romance at first. Instead, there is a sudden, almost impulsive urge in Spencer to act as a sort of fairy godfather. He wants to lift her out of her struggle, so he anonymously funds a luxury trip for her to Switzerland. But as we often see in these stories, an act of benevolence often opens a door to complications. As Helen prepares for this journey, she comes under the attention of Mark Bauer. On the surface, Bauer is charming, sophisticated, and perfectly suited for the high society circles Helen is about to enter. But there is a predatory edge to him. He begins to shadow her, and Spencer, sensing that this man's interest isn't purely romantic, decides to follow her to the Swiss Alps. He moves from being a passive benefactor to an active protector, stepping into a world where he is an outsider. The setting shifts to the Maloja Casal, a grand hotel in the mountains. This hotel acts as a social microcosm, a place where every glance and every gesture is weighed by the people inside. Helen finds herself navigating a minefield of class-based scrutiny. There is a woman there, Mrs. Vavasour, who represents the rigid, unyielding social structures of the time. To people like her, Helen is an interloper, a woman whose presence in such a luxury setting is a puzzle that needs to be solved or dismissed. While Helen is trying to maintain her dignity and her professional identity in this high society bubble, a much darker, more primal story is unfolding in the shadows of the mountains. We meet Stamper, a local Swiss guide. He seems like just another part of the landscape, but he is actually a man driven by a singular, devastating purpose. Through a series of revelations, we learn that Mark Bauer is not who he says he is. His real name is Marcus Bauer, and 16 years earlier, he was a man who traded a human life for social mobility. He had abandoned a woman named Etta Stamper to pursue wealth and status, and the heartbreak of that betrayal led Etta to take her own life. Stamper has spent a decade fueled by this grief, and he has tracked Bauer to these mountains. The tension between the polished world of the hotel and this raw, vengeful pursuit comes to a head in one of the most striking scenes in the book. In a quiet, chilling cemetery, Stamper corners the terrified Bauer. He doesn't want money, or even a simple apology. He wants a ritual of reckoning. He forces Bauer to kneel at Etta's grave and perform a mock marriage ceremony to her dead body. It is a haunting moment that strips away Bauer's sophisticated mask, binding him forever to the sin he thought he had left behind in his climb toward respectability. As this psychological drama intensifies, the social drama at the hotel reaches a breaking point. A socialite named Millicent Jacques, who has a grudge against Helen, attempts to ruin her reputation by implying that Helen is having an affair with Bauer. In a move that is as much about self-preservation as it is about deception, Bauer makes a shocking public declaration. He intends to marry Helen. It is a calculated move to shield himself from scandal, but it creates a volatile triangle. Now, Spencer is there, challenging Bauer's dominance, and Helen is caught in the middle of two men who are both, in their own ways, trying to define her life. Bauer's desperation eventually turns to active malice. He begins to manipulate Helen, presenting her with forged telegrams designed to make her believe that Spencer is a predator. It is a classic tactic of the gaslighter, to make the victim feel that the only person who can protect them is the one who is actually harming them. Overwhelmed by the web of lies and the suffocating intensity of the men around her, Helen does the only thing she can: she flees. She escapes the social trap of the hotel and heads into the high, treacherous mountains, attempting to lose herself in the terrain as she moves toward Italy. But Spencer, the man who has spent his life reading the layers of the earth, is not so easily deterred. He tracks her into the Bernina range, eventually finding her in a remote, isolated hut. It is here, in the most stripped-down and honest environment possible, that the truth finally comes out. Away from the polite lies of the hotel and the manufactured scandals of London, Spencer is able to clear his name and reveal Bauer's true nature. In the raw, cold reality of the peaks, their connection finally becomes real. The misunderstandings are stripped away, and they find a moment of genuine, unmediated connection. However, the resolution of their story is not a quiet one. The mountains, which have served as a backdrop for so much human maneuvering, ultimately demand their own final act. A sudden, violent avalanche strikes on Corvatsch. It is a moment of pure, indifferent natural force. The disaster is devastating. Stamper, who is revealed in his final moments to have harbored his own secret obsession with Helen, is killed by the snow. Bauer is left permanently injured and broken, his social climbing ended by a force he could neither manipulate nor outrun. With the obstacles of the past and the predators of the present removed, the story concludes with a sense of hard-won peace. Spencer and Helen marry in Meloja, finally crossing that silent barrier of misunderstanding and social constraint to build a life together. When we look back at the book, it's clear that Tracy was doing more than just writing a romantic thriller. The silent barrier is a brilliant, multi-layered metaphor. It's the physical barrier of the Alps, which provides the scale and the danger, but it's also the social barrier of the class system, which keeps people in their proper places and makes truth so difficult to communicate. Most importantly, it's the psychological barrier, the walls we build around our secrets and the ways we use deception to protect our standing. There is a profound contrast throughout the novel between civilization and nature. The hotel is a place of artificial drama, people fighting over reputations, status, and social etiquette. It is a world of masks. The mountains, by contrast, are sublime. They are beautiful, yes, but they are also lethal and entirely indifferent to human morality. In the hotel, a lie can ruin a woman's reputation. In the mountains, a lie can get you killed. The book suggests that while humans spend a great deal of energy navigating the artificial rules of society, there is a much more fundamental reality that we cannot escape. This brings us to the theme of the weight of the past. The character of Marcus Bauer, or Bauer as he calls himself, is a warning about the impossibility of truly escaping one's moral debts. He thought he could use wealth and social climbing to bury his treatment of Etta Stampa, but the past has a way of catching up. The book argues that you cannot build a stable life on a foundation of betrayed humanity. Eventually, the debt must be paid, and the reckoning usually comes in a form that is far more powerful than the person trying to avoid it. Finally, there is the question of agency, particularly regarding Helen Wynton. Throughout the story, Helen is constantly being acted upon. Spencer wants to protect her, Bauer wants to use her, and Stamper wants to use her as a vessel for his vengeance. She is a woman caught in a world defined by the intentions of men. Her journey, however, is one of finding her own strength. She moves from a state of financial and social vulnerability to a woman who survives the high mountains and finds the agency to choose her own path rather than the one laid out for her by the men in her life. In the end, the book suggests that while we might try to build walls, whether they are social, psychological, or physical, there is a truth that exists beyond them. The avalanche is a violent way to clear the stage, but it serves to show that only when the noise of social posturing and the weight of old lies are stripped away can people truly see one another. Spencer and Helen's marriage isn't just a romantic ending, it is a movement toward a life lived without the need for barriers.